Sarah stood by the window, staring at the last streaks of sunset melting over her quiet suburban street. She held her mug tightly, the warmth of the tea failing to calm the flutter in her chest. Inside, her home was perfectly ordinary. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of children playing outside, the soft ticking of a clock on the wall. Yet Sarah felt a restlessness she couldn't name. She had been married to Daniel for 10 years, and while their life was comfortable, predictable, and full of small joys, she longed for something different to ignite a spark, a change, something to break the monotony. Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing up to catch her staring. "You're quiet," he said, his voice soft but teasing. Sarah bit her lip. "I was thinking, maybe we could invite Emily and Mark over for dinner this weekend," she said finally. Daniel paused, the phone lowering slowly. "Emily and Mark? From book club?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah said, nodding. "I thought it could be fun, casual. It's been a long time since we had friends over. And, well, I just thought it might be nice to see them again." Daniel shrugged with a small smile, trying to hide his curiosity. "Why not? It's been a while since we had company." "Be fun." As the weekend arrived, Sarah busied herself in the kitchen. She chopped vegetables, seasoned the roast chicken, and set the table with their best dinnerware. She played soft jazz in the background, the kind that was both soothing and subtly uplifting. Daniel helped when he could, but mostly he hovered near the kitchen island, making light jokes and keeping the mood easy. When the doorbell rang, Sarah felt a sudden rush of nerves. She opened the door to Emily and Mark, and instantly the room brightened. Emily's laughter was like sunlight spilling into the house, and Mark had a quiet, easy charm that made Daniel shake his head slightly, smiling. The evening began with casual greetings, hugs, and polite compliments on the food. But soon, the four of them settled into the living room, wine glasses in hand, and something unspoken began to unfold. They talked about their week, shared small frustrations and victories, and found themselves laughing more than Sarah expected. Mark leaned slightly forward when he spoke, his attention unwavering, and Sarah found herself drawn to his energy. His voice had a calm warmth that made ordinary stories feel alive. Sarah caught herself smiling longer at his jokes, catching fleeting glances that made her heart flutter. Daniel was equally absorbed, listening intently as Emily recounted her recent hiking trip. Her excitement was infectious, her eyes shining as she described the trails, the quiet beauty of the mountains, the way the air smelled in the early morning. Daniel laughed at her stories, a sound full of genuine amusement. And Emily's cheeks flushed with delight at being seen and appreciated. The room was charged with a subtle energy, a magnetic pull between four people who had shared meals before. But never like this. As the night progressed, conversations deepened. Mark shared stories from his childhood, tales that were humorous but tinged with nostalgia. Sarah listened, fascinated by the way he painted scenes with words. She realized she hadn't felt this drawn to someone in years. And yet there was no intent, no danger, just a simple human connection. Her pulse quickened occasionally when their hands brushed while reaching for glasses or passing plates. She wondered if Daniel noticed, but his attention seemed entirely on Emily's stories. The way her hands moved expressively, the laughter that bubbled from her lips. Daniel's presence was comforting, but Sarah sensed the edges of something unspoken beginning to form a tension between excitement and restraint, between admiration and longing. They moved to the dining table for the main course, and the chatter never ceased. Jokes were exchanged, light teasing allowed, small gestures, touching shoulders, leaning in to hear each other better, sharing smiles that lingered made Sarah's stomach flip in unexpected ways. Mark's eyes met hers across the table, more than once, and in those moments, Sarah felt a strange electricity. She reminded herself of Daniel's hand on hers, the life they had built, and yet the thrill of something new, something different, bubbled beneath the surface. Emily and Daniel, meanwhile, were having their own subtle dance. Emily laughed freely at Daniel's dry humor, and he responded with warmth and patience. Their interaction was innocent, yet charged with the kind of intensity that comes when two people feel truly seen. By dessert, the energy in the room had shifted from casual comfort to something more fragile and heightened. Conversation slowed naturally, and the four of them lingered on small, personal stories, sharing insights and reflections that felt intimate. Sarah noticed the way Mark's smile softened when he listened, the way his head tilted slightly when he agreed with her thoughts. Daniel's attention to Emily's laughter, the gentle touch of reassurance he offered when she shared a vulnerable moment, created a parallel rhythm of connection. The room was full of warmth, affection, and subtle longing, a delicate web of human emotion that pulled everyone together. When the evening ended, Emily and Mark said their goodbyes. Hugs were exchanged, lingering just slightly longer than usual. The door closed behind them, leaving Sarah and Daniel in the quiet that followed, a quiet that felt heavier than before. Sarah leaned against the counter, still catching her breath. From the night's intensity, I think something changed tonight, she admitted softly. Daniel nodded, standing beside her and wrapping an arm around her shoulder. Maybe it's just the excitement of new connections, he said gently. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She felt a flutter of curiosity, a mix of anticipation and uncertainty that she hadn't felt in years. She couldn't stop replaying the glances, the smiles, the energy in the room, the way Mark's presence lingered even after he left. The night stretched on, and Sarah sat by the window once more, gazing at the darkened street. She thought of Mark's laugh, the warmth of his attention, and the effortless charm that made even the simplest stories feel alive. She thought of Emily's joy, the sparkle in her eyes, the way she made Daniel laugh until his shoulders shook. Sarah realized that tonight wasn't just a casual dinner. It was the beginning of something unexpected, a ripple in their routine, a shift in their relationships, a moment that would stay with them long after the evening ended. Daniel joined her by the window, his hand resting lightly on hers. "You're thinking about them," he said quietly. Sarah smiled, a little embarrassed. "Can't help it," she admitted. "There's something different about tonight. I don't know what it is, but it feels like everything shifted." Daniel nodded, squeezing her hand. "Maybe that's not bad. Maybe that's what we need, the reminder that life can still surprise us, even after years together." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, feeling both comforted and unsettled at the same time. There was excitement, yes, but also a twinge of uncertainty, questions she didn't yet know how to answer. As she closed her eyes, Sarah felt the faintest thrill of anticipation. She didn't know what the future held with Emily and Mark, or how the subtle attractions and emotional sparks of tonight would evolve. But she knew one thing: life had changed tonight, and nothing would feel quite the same again. The quiet of their home, once familiar and ordinary, now carried a sense of possibility, a whisper of adventure, and a hint of emotional intensity that neither she nor Daniel could ignore. And with that thought, Sarah drifted to sleep, the memory of Mark's smile and Emily's laughter lingering in her mind. A reminder that connection and curiosity could arrive at the most unexpected moments. The week after that first dinner, Sarah found herself restless in ways she hadn't expected. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Mark, the way he had leaned forward when he laughed, the warmth in his eyes, the subtle charm that had made her pulse quicken. She told herself it was harmless, just admiration for a friend, but the feeling wouldn't leave. Every time Daniel mentioned something about the upcoming weekend, her mind wandered to the idea of seeing Emily and Mark again. Daniel noticed her distraction but said nothing, though his quiet observation made Sarah feel a mix of comfort and unease. She knew Daniel trusted her, and she trusted him, but the memory of last week's subtle sparks lingered like a secret in the room. Then came the text from Mark. Sarah saw it pop up on her phone while she was folding laundry. "We had a great time Friday. Should we plan another dinner soon?" She felt a flutter of excitement and nervousness all at once. She showed it to Daniel, who read it carefully. He smiled, leaning back in his chair. "Why not?" he said. "Could be fun. Another evening together." Sarah hesitated for a moment, aware of the tension she felt, aware of the strange pull between the two couples, and then nodded. "Okay," she said softly. By the time Friday arrived, Sarah was both anxious and thrilled. She prepared the house, with more care than usual, setting the table neatly, lighting a few candles to create warmth, and playing the same soft jazz as last week. Daniel was quieter than normal, but his calm presence helped Sarah steady her nerves. When Emily and Mark arrived, the same energy from the previous dinner returned immediately. Emily's laughter rang through the house like a bell, and Mark's easy smile and quiet charm made Sarah's heart flutter. They hugged, and there was a familiarity this time, a connection that felt natural yet tinged with something unspoken. Dinner started with light conversation, but the atmosphere was charged from the very first moments. Stories flowed easily, and the laughter was louder, more uninhibited. Sarah found herself glancing at Mark often, catching small moments where their eyes met. Each time she felt her pulse race. Daniel, meanwhile, was captivated by Emily's stories. She spoke of a recent art exhibit she had visited, describing the colors, the emotions, and the way the paintings had made her feel. Daniel listened attentively, offering comments and smiles, and Emily's eyes sparkled with delight at his interest. It was a dance of emotions, small gestures, lingering looks, and soft smiles, all forming a tension that neither couple fully understood but both felt deeply. After the main course, they moved to the living room for dessert and coffee. Mark and Sarah ended up on the same sofa, a few feet apart, but the closeness was palpable. Their conversation drifted from casual topics to small personal stories, memories, and reflections. Mark spoke about a time in college when he had traveled alone. For the first time, a story full of humor but also tinged with vulnerability. Sarah listened intently, sharing her own experiences, and for a few moments, the world outside the room seemed to vanish. Her hands brushed once or twice, brief touches that made her stomach flutter and brought a nervous smile to her lips. She noticed Daniel was fully engaged with Emily across the room, giving Sarah permission in a way unspoken but deeply understood. He was present with her, trusting her and trusting the connection they shared. As the evening went on, the emotions in the room deepened. Mark shared more stories from his childhood, and Sarah found herself laughing, feeling seen and appreciated in ways she hadn't experienced in a long time. Daniel and Emily shared small confessions, a vulnerable moment when Emily spoke about a heartbreak she had once endured. Daniel reached across the table, offering reassurance with a gentle touch of her hand, and she looked at him with gratitude, her eyes glistening softly. The interactions were innocent but charged, a delicate web of human emotion, traction, and longing, all carefully restrained by respect and trust. Sarah felt a strange mix of excitement and guilt. She loved Daniel deeply, and yet she couldn't deny the thrill of the new connections. She tried to push the thoughts aside, focusing on the laughter and the conversations. But each glance from Mark, each soft smile, made her heart skip a beat. She realized that this dinner had become more than just another friendly gathering. It was a turning point. It was the moment where boundaries blurred subtly, emotions intensified, and a new depth of connection revealed itself between both couples. As the night wore on, conversation naturally softened. The four of them found themselves lingering on personal reflections, discussing hopes, dreams, and small regrets. Mark shared a memory of a failed business venture, speaking with honesty about the mistakes he had made. Sarah was drawn in, feeling empathy and admiration simultaneously. Her heart swelled with warmth at his honesty, a reminder of the human complexity that made relationships both challenging and beautiful. Daniel and Emily shared a similar moment, connecting over shared disappointments and unexpected victories. And the room felt charged with intimacy in a completely non-physical way, a deep, emotional intimacy that left each person feeling profoundly connected. By the time Emily and Mark prepared to leave, the air was thick with unspoken emotions. Hugs were exchanged, lingering slightly longer than usual, with soft smiles that said more than words ever could. As the door closed behind them, Sarah sank onto the sofa, leaning against Daniel. He put his arm around her, and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling both comforted and restless. "Did it get out of control?" she whispered, a mixture of nervous laughter and awe in her voice. Daniel kissed the top of her head softly. "Maybe a little," he said, "but it doesn't mean anything bad. Sometimes things shake us a little. That's okay. It's how we feel alive." The quiet of the house after their friends left was different than usual. The energy, the laughter, the intensity of connection still lingered in the corners of the room, leaving Sarah with a sense of longing and anticipation. She realized that tonight had opened doors to emotions she hadn't expected, connections that were both thrilling and gentle, exciting yet respectful. Daniel's calm presence reminded her that love wasn't just about passion, it was also about trust, patience, and shared understanding. Later, as they prepared for bed, Sarah couldn't help but replay moments from the night. The way Mark had tilted his head when listening to her, the warmth of his smile, Emily's laugh, the sparkle in Daniel's eyes when he responded to Emily's stories, every detail etched itself into her memory. She understood that the night had revealed something subtle yet profound. The ability to feel intensely for others while remaining deeply committed to the love she shared with Daniel. It was a lesson in human connection, trust, and the complexity of relationships. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and calm. She wasn't sure what the next dinner would bring or how the relationships with Emily and Mark would evolve, but she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. There was anticipation in the air, a sense of possibility, and a quiet thrill in knowing that emotions, new connections, subtle attraction, heartfelt conversations could arrive unexpectedly, reshaping lives and hearts without crossing boundaries. The week that followed was filled with small reminders of that night. Sarah found herself thinking about the laughter, the stories, the smiles. Daniel noticed her reflective mood but simply held her hand, a silent acknowledgement that whatever emotions had arisen, they could be faced together. Each day was a careful dance of normalcy and excitement, a mixture of routine and emotional resonance. Sarah understood that life didn't always arrive in dramatic gestures. Sometimes it came softly, quietly, with small moments that shifted everything. When the next Friday arrived, Sarah and Daniel prepared the house again, anticipation buzzing through the air. They knew that another evening with Emily and Mark would bring new emotions, new surprises, and perhaps even challenges. But they were ready to embrace it, to see where this journey of friendship, attraction, and heartfelt connection would lead. Because tonight they had discovered something invaluable, that human connections could be both gentle and electrifying, emotional and thrilling, respectful, yet filled with longing. As Emily and Mark arrived once more, the room seemed to hum with energy before any words were even spoken. Hugs were warmer, smiles wider, and the familiarity between them already established a rhythm that made everyone feel both comfortable and alive. Sarah felt her heart beat a little faster when Mark greeted her, his eyes holding a softness that made her pulse flutter. Daniel's laughter mingled with Emily's stories, a sound so genuine it made Sarah smile, realizing that the bonds between them had deepened not through drama, not through conflict, but through shared emotions, vulnerability, and trust. As the evening unfolded, Sarah and Mark found themselves again on the same sofa, a few feet apart, talking about dreams and memories, sharing small confessions and reflections. Each word, each glance seemed to carry weight, an intensity that was exhilarating yet safe. Daniel and Emily continued their own conversation across the room, equally engaged, laughing, connecting, and feeling seen in ways that were meaningful and profound. The room was alive with emotional electricity, a quiet storm of connection, longing, and intimacy. Without ever crossing lines or becoming inappropriate by the time the night ended, all four of them sat in silence for a moment.